Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Monday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Coming up on the show, it is a busy one. We're going to be looking at the NFL on another busy Sunday from there. A couple quick CFL and Calgary Flames thoughts. We will get into some World Series talk. Haven't dabbled in that just yet. And then we will get to UFC 308. So a very busy one. As always, if what I'm talking about isn't what you want to talk about, by all means, we can switch things up a little bit. Just send whatever you want in the chat, and I will get to it at varying times. But all right, let's get into it and start talking about the National Football League. So another week has gone by in the NFL, and this week was one of those, okay, how much do you really believe in what you were saying before? Because I think a lot of things really kind of got tested a little bit. A lot of notions that I kind of thought were like, you know what? We are locked in on this one. And so I think that this is like I said, it is a nice kind of testing your convictions sort of a weekend. And like when you look at, and we'll get into the Jets problems, we'll get into a couple of other things, but like I think the Ravens are a very good football team and can be Super Bowl contenders. How much do you think that though? Because that defense is clearly a problem. I think the Eagles may have, I don't want to say the window is closing, but I think there is some kind of a flaw with this Eagles team that is too much to overcome. How much do you believe that, though? Because that was a hell of a showing again this week, and now that is back-to-back pretty good weeks in a row for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Green Bay Packers can be Super Bowl contenders. Now, theirs is affected by an injury, but again, how much do you believe that? Because that was tested this week. And so I think that was kind of the theme of the week for me, is that there were a lot of previously held notions that were very much pressured when push comes to shove this week. And so I'm interested to kind of go through all of it. I wasn't able to watch as much football this week as I normally do. Had a nice little family day out there. So got caught up on as much as I could, but didn't get as in-depth on all of these games as normally I would like to. But let's begin with the New York Jets. Things are falling apart for the New York Jets right now, as they lose again, this time to the New England Patriots. And I don't want to hear any excuses. I don't want to hear anything. This one is simply not good enough for the New York Jets. New England coming into this game had given up 30 points in 3 of the last 4 weeks. To only get 22 points is a failure. New England had scored 20 plus points twice all season. To give up 25 points is a failure. And on that part, again, a lot of the excuses are gone. Hassan Reddick was back. Drake May wasn't playing. Jacoby Brissett, who was just a sitting duck week after week after week, comes out and leads that down your throat, and Ramondre Stevenson polishes it off for a team that was supposed to be defense first. And I get Robert Salah is out, but one of the things we said was like, yeah, this defense isn't really playing all that spectacularly, so the defensive first coach, you kind of gotta wear that one. But then you have to come in and play better in some way. And they just haven't. There has been no part of this team that has improved since the coach was fired. And so again, accountability is the big thing with the New York Jets. And again, it's tough when you make things hard on yourself, right? Well, yes, I guess it is. But this is just, again, not a standard that is going to be good enough. And the wheels have completely fallen off for this Jets team. And for a lot of us watching, it is excellent theater and kind of hilarious. But it's just so bad out there right now. And the defense, I think, needs to improve. Offensively, they need to improve. But hey, at least they have Devontae Adams now to miss deep passes late in football games, right? Like, it's a failure. It is a complete failure, a pathetic showing from the New York Jets in a game they had to have. You cannot take lightly any team right now when you're 2-5. And that's what this team did. Just a abysmal performance by the New York Jets as they stumble here against the New England Patriots. Every aspect of the game needs to be improved. And so now we get to one of the things where it's like, okay, this is challenging what we really think, because the Philadelphia Eagles, coming out of that game against Cleveland, it was like, you know what? I can't. I'm not taking this seriously anymore. I'm just not. There is something fundamentally off with what is going on with the Philadelphia Eagles right now. And then they get the big week, Saquon Barkley against the New York Giants, and you can explain that one off, right? You can explain, well, yes, they absolutely beat the hell out of the Giants. A is the Giants. B, Saquon Barkley, revenge game, motivated, just had a special game. You're not going to get that every week. The passing offense still struggled in a matchup they probably shouldn't have struggled as much as they did. But then to come out here against Cincinnati, who is another one where I didn't mention them in the open, but Cincinnati is a team where you are looking at them as like, what are you? Because this defense had a couple of games where it's, you know what? Maybe they don't got the horses, but they know how to coach a defense up, and they have been able to schematically put this team in a position to succeed. And then Philadelphia comes out there and just big brothers them for 4 quarters, and Jalen Hurts lights their world on fire. And so now, do you have to start taking the Philadelphia Eagles a little bit more seriously? And given that I picked this team to be the number 1 seed in the NFC coming out of it, kind of have a bit of a lean to take this team seriously as much as I can. And I think that this is... I think that this is for real then, because I thought it was for real at the beginning of the season, and now they are playing the way that you kind of thought they were. So I am leaning towards taking the Eagles seriously now going forward. As for the Bengals, I don't really know what to make of this whole thing. To go out there and lose in that fashion is, I think, a little bit startling for them, again, against an Eagles team that I think is pretty good, but one that I will absolutely agree had some flaws. The Bengals are now 0-4 at home to start the season. And so when you have that, it is, again, tough to really take them seriously. And when you look at the schedule going forward, it's not daunting, but it's not easy either. Like, it feels a bit middle of the pack. So they get the Raiders next week. That is a nice soft landing spot. And if you lose that one, then it is certainly panic time. After that, you're at the Ravens. And that... it was not the most impressive showing for the Ravens this year, and that was a close game early on. But now you are traveling to Baltimore to have to play that game. And so that's certainly not an easy game. At Chargers, that's one of those middle-of-the-road ones. Home against the Steelers, you know that's going to be a difficult game. At the Cowboys, At the Titans, Home Browns, Home Broncos, But then you close the season at Steelers. So there is a window there for the Bengals to still go out and make a push and do something, but this was one that was just more than a little alarming. Sticking in that division, the Baltimore Ravens defense is now officially a problem that I don't think we can overlook anymore when looking at this team as a real legitimate contender in the AFC. They have been able to outscore it a number of times, but you look at the points that they have allowed this season: 27 to the Chiefs, 26 to the Raiders, 25 to the Cowboys, 10 against the Bills. And again, that is the game that, if you are a Baltimore backer, is just going to stick with you all season, because that, I said it before and a couple other places have said it, no team has looked that good all season long. That was the most complete performance anyone has had in any game against some resistance all season long. That was spectacular what they were able to do. But then you give up 38 to the Bengals, 23 Commanders, 31 Bucks, 29 now against the Browns. And that is, again, simply not good enough. This defense lost quite a bit going into this season. And it was one of the things I said, because I was still buying into Baltimore, but one of the things that I was worried I was wrong about coming into the year was that Baltimore was still going to be able to scheme away and still have enough talent to adjust for the loss of Queen and the defensive coordinator. And it just hasn't really worked out that way. And so the Ravens are still a good football team, still a very good football team. This isn't a panic button push at all. But as we approach the trade deadline, this is another team that I think really needs to go out and try to address probably a couple of things on the defensive side of the football. The Washington Commanders, that is the win of the week. It is the win, the highlight of the season. You get the Hail Mary at the end of the game, a spectacular catch. It ends up being like one of the last plays that you see in the main window of games. Just an unbelievable moment for the Washington Commanders, and just a game that they, as a franchise, lose 110 times out of 100 previously. And for them to be able to bounce back in this way and come up with that win. Like, this isn't the Commanders are for real now, because we do have questions about Chicago, and again, you still needed a last-second Hail Mary to get to, what does it end up finishing with, 18 points? So, now, against a good Bears defense, like, I don't want to belittle this too much, but this isn't here come the Commanders now, but that's one of those wins that can carry you for weeks at a time now, and just another in a long line of, this is a different Washington team than we are used to. And there are some things that can just stick with you as a franchise. The Jets are dealing with it right now. The Commanders seem to have been able to work their way out of it. They have a division matchup against the Giants coming up. This is an interesting stretch now of the schedule. And it's actually a bit of a tricky schedule the rest of the way. At Giants is not the most difficult of matchups. But then you got the Steelers, and then you got the Eagles. At Philadelphia coming up on November 14th. That is that a Sunday night game? No, that's a Thursday night game. So they have a bit of a tight turn going into a division matchup against the Eagles. That's going to be such a fascinating game. Then you got the Cowboys, now another soft landing spot in the Titans. At the Saints, where we don't really know what that is. And then you close Eagles, Falcons, at Cowboys. So there are going to be tests now for Jaden Daniels and for this team. And what a moment to come out of that and to be able to build off of this. So just, again, unbelievable. Celebrate all you want out in Washington. One quick thing on the Bears guy who, Tyreek Stevenson, who was taunting Commanders fans before the Hail Mary. Like, on the one hand, you could simply not, right? Like, and I don't know what insults are being hurled at him and what any of that is, or any of, like, if I was getting yelled at by 100,000 fans all night and it looked like I was about to win, I'd probably be talking my shit too. I'd probably wait till I had won, but I'd probably be talking my shit too. And so there are times where, oh, well, you just gotta whatever. It's like, yeah, I don't know, man. You're getting yelled at by a ton of people. You might want to yell back at certain points. And some guys do, some guys don't. But I don't view that as a huge character flaw to do it. It looks bad when all of that plays out. But also, like, he does get in position after. Like, he is very obviously aware that, or very obviously unaware that the play is happening. But I do also think he gets back into position in time. Like, I don't think that had he not been jaw-jacking with the fans, that he then makes a play on that football to knock it away or anything like that. Now, they defended poorly, and so it looks bad because you, again, talk your shit and then don't get it. So that, like, just on a whole looks terrible. But I do also think, like, I would cut that guy in meetings tomorrow. It's like, yeah, yell at him, but I don't think you cut him. Like, I don't think it's that. I think people are kind of blowing this one just a smidge out of proportion. Atlanta picks up their win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and it was as easy to move the football on them as we expected. One thing, I do have to credit Tampa Bay for hanging in this game. Given the injury situation they have, given the just terrible loss they had against Atlanta a few weeks ago, it would have been very easy to just pack up, fold up, and just go away. But they battled and they battled and they battled. And there is, when we talk about those foundations being built, and I think there is that out in Tampa Bay, where, like, Baker Mayfield, Todd Bowles doesn't really strike me as a Super Bowl winning duo. But the culture they are establishing there, I think, is really important, and just kind of building up on that now, coming off of you lose Tom Brady and the coach leaves and all of those different things. This new era for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that they are establishing that, if nothing else, they're going to fight to the very last moment. And so you like to see that. For Atlanta, win's a win. You move on. You would like to see a defense maybe not have that much issue, given the limitations that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense has currently. But still, you pick up a win. It's a big division win. You now are a point clear of Tampa Bay for top spot in your division, and you have the tiebreaker because you picked up your wins over those teams. Their schedule the rest of the way kind of looks pretty easy, actually. They take on the Cowboys, then at the Saints and Broncos. Chargers, at Vikings will be tough. At Raiders is not. Giants at Commanders feels like maybe it's a bit more difficult than we thought, and then home against the Panthers to end the season. So this feels like a part of the schedule now where Atlanta can really build up some momentum, but it also feels like a part of the schedule where it's going to be tough to fully buy into this team and take them all the way seriously. For the Green Bay Packers, this just feels like it is one of those years where it's not going to work, where you have the quarterback injury at the beginning and you fight and you battle and you win a couple of games and you stay in the race, and that's awesome. But now they do get a win against Jacksonville, but Jordan Love is hurt again, and there was the phrasing high level of concern or something like that. Like it struck me as the from Billions, right? I am not uncertain. It's like, well, I'm not worried. And so it feels like one of those where you have a team that is just fighting and scrapping and battling, and it's just week after week something goes against them and something goes against them and something goes against them. So we will see what they do here now with Jordan Love's injury and trying to work their way out of that one. It is easy from a like Madden standpoint to just be like, oh, just trade for a quarterback if your guy gets hurt. It is very difficult to implement a quarterback midseason. And for me, it was the prime example of this was the then Oakland Raiders and if you weren't there, this is going to sound weird, but Jason Campbell was just unstoppable for a season. As unstoppable as a Raider quarterback had been up to that point since Rich Gannon. And it had been a while since Rich Gannon. And so, like, this team that has been, that was this laughingstock in the NFL for probably at that point coming up on a decade, was finally coming out of it. And Campbell was playing the best football of his career, and he gets hurt. And so the Raiders, this is their first real opportunity to go to the playoffs, and like I said, about a decade. And so they go out and make a trade for Carson Palmer. And you think, perfect. This is definitely an Al Davis guy, because he can just chuck that thing, right? And so, okay, this makes sense. They overpaid to get him, but he's really frustrated in his spot in Cincinnati. He is not going to play another down for that football team. And so now you can bring him in and you can get a veteran, probably you would consider a talent upgrade, and move this team forward and get into the playoffs. Well, they were able to take advantage of a Chargers team that had a banged up offensive line in the first game that Carson Palmer played, but it didn't look great. And after that, he could not get it. They lost basically every game after that. They had a win in your in game against the Chargers in week 17 to close out the year, and they got shit kicked. And that was it. And so it is a bit of a cautionary tale where you look at, oh yeah, just go out and trade for a veteran quarterback. He can come in and pick all this up. That's not necessarily going to be the case. It is very difficult. We saw it, apples and oranges, but we saw it a little bit in the Canadian Football League when Nathan Rourke tried to come in midseason. That didn't work either, or hasn't worked so far anyway. It is very difficult to come in, learn the playbook, get the timing down with your different receivers, figure out all the different reads and all of those things, and adjust to everything else, while, by the way, live bullets are flying and there's only 10, 9, whatever weeks left in the NFL season. So it is not so simple as go out, trade for quarterback X, and everything will be fine. That just doesn't work. It doesn't work in the NFL nearly as well as people would like to think that it does. And so now for Green Bay, it's a really difficult spot, and it is tempting to. And I'm not saying don't try, because it is a very tempting spot for them right now. They are half a game back of the Detroit Lions for top spot in the NFC North. And just looking at it, they are very clearly a playoff team right now in the AFC. They currently sit 5th at 6-2. Top 7 make it. Right now, the Bears are the first team out at 4-3. So again, a game and a half back of the Packers for that playoff spot. So it is going to be very tempting and going to be very interesting to see what the Packers end up doing. On Sunday Night Football, it was the 49ers and the Cowboys, and this was just these two teams are at where they are at. Like, to watch that game, I don't think this is a gigantic shift in power rankings or power ratings or however I view these football teams. That was not Sunday for these particular football clubs. The San Francisco 49ers pick up a convincing, it was 34-20, I believe. 30-24. So not as dominant and convincing as maybe I was leading on, but still, the 49ers are 6 points better than the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think that's a a breaking news thing. That this is just kind of these two teams are who we thought they were, and no one got let off of any hooks or anything like that. It is just, 49ers are a better football team than the Dallas Cowboys are right now. Maybe a touch alarming that they only won by 6, but given, Dallas can still put up some points. They still have some talent on that side of the ball, just not nearly enough to be able to compete right now. We talked about how right now the playoff situation is, and the Chicago Bears are on the outside looking in at 4-3, which would definitely mean the Cowboys are on the outside looking in at 3-4. Right now, they, with tiebreakers and everything, currently sit 13th in the NFC standings, and that is a lot of teams to have to jump over. They have to get over the Rams, Seahawks, 49ers, Buccaneers, Eagles, and Bears to get into a postseason spot as it sits right now. That is a lot of work that has to be done over the next little while. And when we look at the schedule the rest of the way, at Falcons next week, that is not an easy matchup. Eagles, home Eagles, that's tough. Home Texans, that's tough. At Commanders, a lot tougher than you thought it was going to be now. Then you get the Giants, you get the Bengals, who we're not sure about. You get at Panthers, and you get the Buccaneers. So there is a stretch of 4 games where they are going to have to go 0-4. They're going to have to go to 4-0 in that stretch. But that's still, as it sits right now, that gets you 4 wins, which gets you to 7, which is not going to be enough to get in the playoffs. And then they are at Eagles and home Commanders to close out the season. So when you are looking at it, you are going to have to sweep those games in that middle stretch there against those lesser teams and split probably with the Eagles and the Commanders, neither of whom you have looked anywhere close to so far this season. And that still gets you to 6, which gets you to 9, which should get you in as a top 7 team in the NFC, but is not a guarantee right now. We're talking about 9 wins getting you there. Green Bay needs 3 of them. They already won a couple games with Malik Willis as their quarterback, so even if they trot that out again, the odds are they're still going to be able to pick up at least those 3 wins. So it is going to be a difficult climb for the Dallas Cowboys to get into the postseason. We have one more team to talk about. It does happen to be my absolute favorite team, and so we get to do a fancy different thing for them. Yes, used to do a Raider podcast on here. Now this is a segment. It is Let's Raid, Vegas Raiders discussion here, coming off of a Sunday. The one thing I thought of watching that whole game is like, wow, really good thing that the Raiders didn't take potentially the best offer and trade Devontae Adams to the Kansas City Chiefs, or else they might have lost this game, given Patrick Mahomes some weapons to throw to for almost 300 yards. Really dodged that landmine, didn't they? It's so frustrating when you hear those things coming out. Like, oh, well, yeah, the Raiders, they didn't want to trade him in division, so they'll take a third-round pick from the New York Jets. And there were conditions on that third that could make it a second, but does that look like a team that is going to have Devontae Adams in the starting lineup of the AFC Championship game? I think not. So, it could be a high third-round pick, given how things are going with the Jets, but that is looking like a third-round pick right now. As far as the Raiders are concerned, they actually did do better in this game than I thought, and they were able to move the ball, kind of. The one thing, and this is true for every team, you are not going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs by kicking field goals. That has never, ever, 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 ever worked. Now, Antonio Pierce loves nothing more than to kick when he should not be kicking, and all of those things. And so to suggest that there was a time or place where they could have or should have or whatever, maybe not. But for this Raiders team and for every team going forward, I just think you have to look at this and really be aware that settling for field goals, even if it's, oh, you know what, just get points. Just get some points, just keep that momentum going. At some point, they get to do that 7-point thing. And I'm not going to say they get to do it at will, because that has not been how they have played it this year, but I don't think just getting points is the way to go. You have to be aggressive against these guys. The same way just kicking field goals against the Patriots was never going to be it, because eventually, hey, look at this, we went down and we scored 3 times. It's 9-0, and oh, it's 9-7, and now it's 14-9, and we're losing again. That's always how this has been with these guys. And team after team falls into we just got to get some points here. We just got to get that momentum, build that up a little bit. And it always leads to a 6-9, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're losing. and now you can't finish drives, and all these times where you were that close to just being able to finish it, you weren't able to do it. But this is, again, it's going to be something we talk about with the Raiders for the rest of the season. There is a significant talent deficiency at a couple of key positions. Now, we can argue that the running back is not as key a position as it used to be, but they still... the reason it is not is because you can find a lot of good running backs out there. The Raiders have 3 guys who I wouldn't put in that category. And so they have a deficiency there, and it is so obvious that the quarterback ain't it either. So that is that's just where this Raiders team is at this particular moment. Just quickly here, gonna hit the talking football thing again. Some news coming out from Adam Schefter. All right, just got an alert from Adam Schefter. Not great. So already for the Jacksonville Jaguars, you have Christian Kirk suffering a season-ending broken collarbone, and now Brian Thomas Jr. could miss 2 to 4 weeks with a chest rib injury suffered on Sunday. Scans will determine full extent and next steps, though Thomas is also getting a second opinion. The star rookie ranks tied for 6th in the NFL with 573 yards. That coming from senior NFL reporter Jeremy Fowler, and retweeted, I guess quote tweeted technically, by Adam Schefter. So not great. Also, there was a trade. The Kansas City Chiefs acquiring linebacker Josh Uche. Sorry, I should know the pronunciation on that one, but I don't. Acquiring linebacker Josh Uche, I think, from the Patriots. Not necessarily certain what is going back at this particular time. But yes, that's a bit of a bummer for a Jacksonville Jaguars team that was involved in another close game this week against the Green Bay Packers and just unable to put the finishing touches on that performance once again. And just another close loss for them. You look at how this season has kind of gone for Jacksonville. Close loss against the Dolphins week 1, 20-17. Close loss against the Browns week 2, 18-13. Just annihilated by the Bills. Close loss to the Texans, 24-20. Beat the Colts in a close win. Blown out by the Bears, blow out the Patriots, and now another close loss against the Packers. You are looking at like 2 or 3 plays different, and all of a sudden this entire season, and really the entire outlook on this Jacksonville team is entirely different. They do not have the most difficult schedule the rest of the way. They got at Eagles, home Vikings, which will be tough, and at Lions, and again, home Texans. So they have a stretch here where it's very difficult. But then after that, to close the season, it's at Titans, home Jets, at Raiders, home Titans. So if they can just keep their head above water a little, if they can find 2 wins in that, that might not even be enough now, though, looking at, like, they're 2-6. Like, just looking at it in general, you think, oh, wow, hey, if I can keep my head above water, then maybe we can do that. But looking at where Jacksonville is right now in the AFC playoff picture, Jacksonville currently sits in 13th. They are just 2 games out of a playoff spot. And so when we looked at that schedule there, again, so we're looking at 2-6 right now for Jacksonville, and we said 4 wins at the end. They got to sweep all 4 of those, right? I guess 5. At Titans, home Jets, at Raiders, home Titans, and then at Colts. So that one's, again, we consider the Colts a neutral matchup at this point because we just don't know about that team at all. But you have to win all 5 of those, basically, if you're Jacksonville. That gets you to 7. If you can go 500 in this difficult stretch here, at Eagles, home Vikings, at Lions, home Texans, then you're 2-2, and what do we just put together? That gets you to 9, which again, in the AFC might be enough, might not be enough. Right now, the last playoff team in the AFC is at 4-3, and they are the LA Chargers. So 9 in the AFC might get you there. But again, this, very bad news for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Some fantasy talk here. Mini moneymaker. Yo, I just traded Swift, Cup, and Richardson for Reek and Baker. 1 running back league. I already have Kyron and CMC. My other wide receiver is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Initial reaction is I think you did quite well in this trade. Just looking at it, Swift, Cup, and Richardson. So Richardson, that one is honestly going from Baker to Richardson. I think right now is an upgrade. We don't know what Josh Richardson. Well, we don't know what he would be like as a quarterback either, but we don't know what Anthony Richardson is as a quarterback. Cup. I think that if you can basically upgrade Cup to Tyreek Hill and just have to lose Swift in that while you're also upgrading your quarterback spot, that feels like a really, really good win. Also, the one running back thing does, I think, kind of add to that a little bit more. That, yeah, with Kyren and CMC, you do not need a DeAndre Swift as your running back. So, yeah, I think that's a fantastic trade for you. And then bulking up your running back or your wide receiver room with Tyreek Hill and Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think that is a fantastic, fantastic trade. The Dolphins game was one that I didn't get to get a whole lot of eyes on for this game. I know that they lost, and I know that kind of sucks for them, obviously. But how did Tyreek Hill do? 6 receptions, 72 yards, 9 targets. So yeah, you are that. For Tua's first game back, I think you're going to feel very comfortable about that particular performance. So that is fantastic, I think, from a fantasy trade value standpoint. I think you did awesome on that trade. Mini moneymaker with quite a few fantasy chats in here, which I greatly appreciate. And it seems like you win a lot of the trades that you have. So, you know what? I won't trade with you, but an invite into the league next year, because seems like you're winning a few of these trades. I like to get in on that, because I seem to be on the losing end of a few things in fantasy this season, but happy for you. Again, keep the fantasy chats coming. I am going to move to a couple of different things here, but when I see them in the chat, I see whatever you guys are putting in there. I will note it, and we can kind of pivot back at the end of every segment here. So keep any chats you guys want in the chat going. But we are going to move now quickly to the Canadian Football League. The CFL regular season is done. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers do wrap up that last home spot first place, I guess, in the CFL's West Division. So they will host the West Final. Coming up this week, it is Toronto against Ottawa and the Saskatchewan Roughriders against the BC Lions. We are going to be covering this all throughout the week. And I appreciate you, Mini Moneymaker. But I think that, like, we'll talk about these throughout the week. There wasn't a whole lot, I think, actionable from this week in the CFL. The one thing I want to talk about is some of the reaction around the Calgary Stampeders. And it is coming out today that the Stampeders are going to keep Dave Dickenson in place as coach and general manager. And I think that's a mistake. This is getting to the point of banging your head against the wall and then wondering why you have a headache. And I don't know. What message is this sending to the fans? What message is this sending to the team? I guess you do owe it to Dave to try to get himself out of this, and maybe he's saying I'm GM or nothing at all. Like, we don't know what the back conversations are, but I don't understand this at all. I don't get this in any way, shape, or form. What is the argument for keeping Dave Dickenson on as general manager? Because I don't think, and this has been part of the reaction, and this was going to be the segment today before the Dave news came out, I don't get the reaction to this season from some Stamps fans that I'm seeing online in the slightest. A lot of, what have these coaches ever done? Why keep this guy? Why keep this guy? Why keep this guy? Look, you can maybe look at some of the little things coaching-wise with this team and see, like, okay, well, this is where they missed this. This is where they missed that. This is da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But this is a roster construction thing. Like, I don't think that if you got the absolute maximum, best case scenario, Madden got everyone to play to their overall ratings, whatever, I don't think this season looks a whole lot different than what it did. Quite frankly, I just don't think this team's good enough. I don't think, as currently constructed, this team is good enough. They did not get good enough quarterback play. They couldn't stop the run. And maybe that is where you can look at potential for a coaching failure, in that the pieces do not add up to the sum of the parts, I guess. I always screw that phrase up. But still, the team looked better defensively on paper than they actually did produce. And they couldn't stop a thing on the ground all season long. And that became a fairly glaring issue. And so if you want to look at the defensive game plan or whatever, but again, I just don't think the players played well enough, quite frankly. I don't think that, I don't think you got the boost from some of the offseason acquisitions that you had. I don't think that you got the play on the defensive line that you would have wanted or needed. And I think that you then had some rookie, LaBrosse on the outside, who all of a sudden had to play a bit of a bigger role. So again, I view this as a roster construction problem out in Calgary right now. We have seen Dave Dickenson Edmonton be a very good coach. We have seen these guys have this success. They just haven't built a roster to have that success with. And so maybe you give Dave one more try at it, but yes, they made the playoffs last year. That is simply because Saskatchewan could not get out of their own way with their starting quarterback injured all of last year, and because Edmonton decided to wait until week 10 to make a quarterback change. It was not because of this grand whatever that Calgary had. They just happened to get in the playoffs because the league mandates that 6 teams get in the playoffs. It wasn't because of anything else they did. And so now, to run it back, I don't get it. Don't get it at all. I think Calgary is setting themselves up for another spot to have another disappointing year as the fan base fades and fades further away from this particular team. But more CFL talk to come as we get ready for the week ahead and get ready for the postseason here. But let's shift gears one more time, or another time, I guess. The Calgary Flames making a couple roster moves, and I am genuinely surprised at the reaction online. Let's talk about it. So the Calgary Flames have, they lose, again, back-to-back losses now after points in 6 straight games to start the season. Not an entirely unpredictable result, losing to the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets, that was their 8th win in a row. And again, and I cannot stress this part enough, are a better hockey team than the Calgary Flames. And so we can go into the X's and O's of that game. And I don't particularly see the point to at this point. Winnipeg out-hockeyed the Flames. A couple things could have been different, but I want to talk about the reaction to the Matt Coronato move. As on Friday, while I was on Sportsnet 960 The Fan, chatting with Logan Gordon for my weekly appearance on Sportsnet Today 960 from 1 to 3 every Friday, that news broke that Coronato was being sent back to the American Hockey League. And this is where I'm in, just personally, if you can come on this journey with me for a second, I am on in an interesting spot, I guess, because I have this job with the mainstream side where I am working on the radio station that is the rights holder and all of those things, and just working with those guys who are in it every day and all of those, all that sort of aside. And then I come out of that bubble and I go into the more internet-y one with all the Game Over stuff that I do. Game Over Calgary live after every Flames game. Just getting all the plugs in here today. But, and you go into that, and I am not saying that one side is right and one side is wrong. I am just saying both the listeners, but also the hosts and the people who I interact with on both sides have very different views on some things. Sometimes there is that symmetry there, but it is what the one side is seeing and then what the internet side is seeing are very different. And I think particularly on this guy, because when that Coronato news broke, it was just kind of that was going to be the case, probably. Like, I would have liked to have seen them try it a little bit more, but the only argument I had for doing that was I would like to see it a little bit more because we just haven't seen enough of it, I don't think. And I think he is going to be a good player, and I would like to see him get a bit more of an opportunity to be a good player. You couldn't, I thought, give any merit to what he had done on the ice as a suggestion for why he should stay. But then I come out of just kind of get blooped out of that mainstream bubble and back into the internet one, and it's, well, look at his expected goals for, look at his high danger chances for, and look at all these things, and how can you not see that this guy deserves another opportunity? And so I was surprised when like that news happens, and honestly, like, it was just like, okay, yeah, he got sent down. I mean, it probably means someone else is coming back, but the Wranglers are playing 2 games this weekend, so instead of just sitting him, they want to put him in the lineup right away, get him down to Colorado, and we'll see if Sharon Govich is back. If not, you have Rooney, Kirkland, Klapka. You can mix and match all those pieces all you want, and it's fine. But then again, you get out of that bubble and you go out into the internet-y part of it, and it is, oh my God, how could they, like, how could you do this to this guy? And I guess I know what you are seeing on that when it comes to the expected goals for and the high danger chances for. And I don't even want this to be, I know I'm kind of pitting it as mainstream versus internet and whatever, but I don't want this to be an analytics versus eye test debate, because it kind of is, I guess, but it is more just a don't hone in on a couple. And I am guilty of that. And the ones that Coronato is thriving in are admittedly the ones that I look at the most. Expected goals for percentage and high danger chances for. I think those are Probably pretty self-explanatory about what they measure and all of that. And so with Coronato being on the positive side of those, if you look at that, it's okay, well, how can you get rid of this guy? But you look at the rest of the picture, and it is the possession numbers are a bit below 50%. Whether it is Corsi or Fenwick or whatever you want it to be, a lot of the other numbers are just a little bit underneath. And so while he has done a very good job when he is out on the ice of when they get the opportunities to strike, holy hell do they strike, and also maybe limiting some of the real bad chances that are happening when they don't have the puck, which is more than they do. But also, I think when you combine all of that with watching it out on the ice and actually watching what's happening, I don't see the argument for keeping him around right now. And that's not to say he's a bad player. I think he's a very good hockey player, and I think he's going to be a very, very good hockey player. It's just not right now. He is just not that guy at this point. And any expected goals for or high danger whatever was kind of created off of what Lomberg was doing and created off of what Kadri was doing. He was not the one driving any of that. And again, he had some moments, but he has to get stronger on the puck. He has to be able to win a few more of those battles and get those retrieval opportunities down. And again, part of that is you do have to compete against the NHL level to be able to figure out how to do that. But I think that's something at the AHL he can still kind of work on. And I think that there was a couple of times where, and you don't fault him for this to a certain degree, he is trying to do a little bit too much out there, and you can understand it. But when you have Kadri and Kuzmenko with you, you have to do a little bit more. You have to do a little bit more than what he was doing. Like there has to be an elevation there. And I thought he brought a little bit of that fourth line work ethic out there, which I loved to see. I loved how well he fit with Lomberg, and I loved how well he played on that fourth line when he got the goals and all of those sorts of things. But then it moved up to the fourth line, and while he still had that work ethic that got him there, he did not have an elevation in his game, stylistically or talent-wise, quite frankly, to be able to fit there. And to Toxic's point, when he's going out there and doing that with the fourth line, he is generally going out there and doing that against fourth liners. Toxic Predator in the chat saying he's also been playing fourth line against the worst NHLers. Not that being the worst NHLer is bad or anything. Yes, no, that is also a statement that should always be driven home. The absolute worst NHL player in the league right now would be by about 90x the best player in your beer league game, right? In any other league in the world would be the best player on that ice surface. They just happen to be going up against the best. So always a nice note. But no, you're right. Like, you have to look at when those things are happening, you have to look at who he is playing against. You have to look at who he is playing with and how all of these things are happening. And so again, it is, I don't want to say easy, because it is how different people view these things. But if you just look at, okay, I am just going to watch the games, and what I see is what I am going to do with all of this, things are going to be missed. You cannot just focus on one guy the whole time. Unless you're going to go back and watch each and every game and isolate on each and every player, then maybe you can do that. But you're also going to run out of time. By the time you finish that for the 2024 season, the 2028 season will be done. So it is still very difficult to just watch everything on every play and take all of those notes down and to be able to process that as a way of going about evaluating every player in the league. So that is where stats become helpful. But again, you cannot just focus on stats, and to even broaden or to specify it a little bit more down onto one or two particular stats, it is just not going to be enough, quite frankly. The other part of this whole debate, where did you want to put him? And I understand right now that conversation is circling around Anthony Mantha. And, why did they need to bring him in to, he's just taken a spot now from these guys? Well, probably, quite frankly, yeah. That I don't have a ton of argument for. But also, while it has slowed down a touch, he has done a good job of getting a better version of Jonathan Huberdeau out of him than we have seen before. And as I state on here, probably more than I need to, Jonathan Huberdeau is a part of the Calgary Flames' future. Whether you like it or not, that is going to be the case. And so, if you're going to be having this guy hang around, and you are going to be paying him $10.5 million to do so, you may as well try to get the best out of him. And I think, right now, Anthony Mantha is significantly better off doing that than Matt Coronato is. And so we would all love to live in a world where just the 12 best hockey players who play forward get to go out every night and play hockey for the Calgary Flames, and it would be great. But there is a team building aspect of it. And so if you have to, like, you can complain that, well, Anthony Mantha's here and he's taking a spot. Maybe he shouldn't be, maybe he should be. I don't think it's a bad move personally, but I can see your argument. The fact of the matter is, he is here, and you're not going to sit him. So realistically, where were you putting Coronato? In a cycle with Khamzat and Klapka on the fourth line and just working in every third game playing fourth line minutes? That's not helping anybody. Let him go down in the American Hockey League and kick the shit out of some American Hockey League players and come back up in January when they've traded a bunch of dudes and light the world on fire then. I don't think, unless they are telling him, hey man, you're going down because you were dog shit, I don't think that this is going to be something that messes with his psyche. I don't think this is going to be something that is going to damage him long term or anything like that. And I don't think that this situation is unwarranted by any stretch of the imagination. I think that the Flames have a current spot where they have a few young players who are playing pretty well, and there is just, it is the same as in training camp. There is not a spot for this kid here right now. To Toxic's point again, I still think Coronato is a bona fide 20-goal scorer in this league. He has that shot. He has that shot. He has that instinct, and we saw he has the work ethic. It has to be put all together now. There is a rounding out of this kid that still needs to happen. It is there, and it will still be there, and it will get there a little bit more, but there are some things that need to be worked on. So this is going to seem like a hilarious thing probably in like 2 months. Oh man, remember that time we all got freaked out that they sent him down and all? I was genuinely surprised at the reaction I saw to the Coronato move the other day. All right, we haven't done this a whole lot yet, but the World Series has been as advertised so far. You get a historic moment to start, and now drama heading back to the Bronx for Game 3 tonight. Let's talk about it. The New York Yankees find themselves in a hole heading into Game 3 of the World Series after 2 tough losses against the Los Angeles Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. World Series talk here on Couch Potato Diary. This series has been fantastic. It has been everything you want it to be, with the drama of Game 1, and now the drama setting up for Game 3. And hot take, breaking news, the Yankees are in tough. I think when you look at this, you thought, well, the Yankees actually may have a pitching edge in this series. I don't take the Yankees pitching staff seriously enough that I was going to say the Yankees had a starting pitching edge. But the one part of that edge that they needed to have and needed to take advantage of was absolutely going to be, or going to have to be, Garrett Cole coming out and winning Game 1. And to lose Game 1 in the fashion they did, a Garrett Cole start, like, I think Cole is probably going to start 2 games in this series, and honestly, if this was 15 years ago, you'd probably have him penciled in 1, 4, and 7. And you, from a Yankee standpoint, I kind of feel like you would need to win all 3 of those. Because you look at the pitching matchup in Game 2, Yamamoto was utterly brilliant in that particular game. He was everything you needed him to be. And then Rodon gets hit a little bit, and that's that. But you look at that game, advantage Dodgers, I would say. And they took advantage of that advantage to take the 2-0 series lead. Coming into Monday now, Walker Buehler against Schmidt. Buehler is not the guy he was a couple of years ago. I think we can all understand that. But if you were looking at which guy's best is the best, it is Walker Buehler, and I don't think it's particularly close. So that is why Game 1 on Friday was such a backbreaker. Not just because it is the first walk-off grand slam in the history of the sport in the World Series, but because your ace was out there and you needed to win that game, given how the rest of the pitching matchups kind of stack up. They are in a position where very realistically their season is on the line with Heel starting in Game 4. And that would be a little bit concerning to me. And I think Heel is really good, but I don't know if he is lasers pointing at Earth, my season is on the line good. The other part of this that needs to change for the Yankees, Aaron Judge cannot be a non-factor in this series for them to win. I saw a thing ranking the 25 best players in the series, and obviously, Shohei Ohtani is number one. And now he may not be playing because of the shoulder issue sliding into second base. But he was number one. Soto and Judge were 2 and 3. And that had to be the case for them to win this series. Well, we can all talk about X factors and whatever, but you needed Juan Soto and you needed Aaron Judge to be the second and third best players in this series. And right now, Aaron Judge is sitting at approximately the 30th best player in this series. Again, it just hasn't been good enough for him so far. You look back at game number 2, 0 for 4, which is a bit of a waste of the 2 hits that Juan Soto gets ahead of you. And then the rest of this lineup, Stanton goes 1 for 4. He can hit the ball a billion miles, and that's great. Chisholm 1 for 4. Rizzo only gets 1 real at bat here. Volpe 0 for. Wells 0 for. Verdugo 0 for. Torres 0 for. Now, that's against a very good pitcher in Yamamoto, but I don't know if any of those are, oh my God, how could they? This lineup only is as dangerous as they are if Aaron Judge is lighting this world on fire. If Soto is getting on and Judge is driving him in, then this lineup becomes difficult to stop. When Judge is kind of a non-factor, then all of a sudden it makes it easier to pitch to Stanton with 2 out in the first inning, and then Rizzo with nobody out in the second inning. And it makes everyone just that much easier to deal with. And now, Toxic saying in the chat, Judge is the Kershaw in the playoffs. That is the reputation that he is developing. And that is not a reputation that comes off of you easily in New York with the Yankees. And if he strikes out in that first at bat tonight in the Bronx, Lord help you, whatever reaction he is going to get, because I think it could turn very quickly. And this is, I think, obviously a must win for the Yankees tonight. And the only way I think they do that is if Aaron Judge is back to being a superhero. We can talk about different role players and this, that, and the other thing. Sometimes it's just Freddie Freeman hitting grand slams, man. Sometimes it is just the $325 million pitcher going out there and pitching a gem in game 2. And sometimes it's the guy who wears the C on his shirt, who got a whole lot of money, who's probably going to get an MVP when the awards get handed out. Sometimes it just comes down to those dudes stepping up and making big plays in big moments. That is what this whole series has been built on, and it is what the Yankees desperately need going into Game 3. Now let's get into the world of combat, shall we? It was a gigantic weekend in Abu Dhabi as UFC 308 went down with the crowning of a new superstar, I would say, in the Ultimate Fighting Championship as Ilia Topuria, did the damn thing. Let's talk about it. UFC 308 going down in Abu Dhabi over the weekend. In the main event, it was Ilia Topuria, the first knockout victory over Max Holloway of Holloway's career. A stunning knockout in the 3rd round to retain the featherweight championship. And there are a lot of talking points to come out of this particular thing that he did. The first is his brilliance. Let's talk about the actual fight first. First round, Max Holloway has a very clear and obvious understanding of the distance. And I wish that he had a little bit more snap off of that jab, but it was filling the space enough that it was keeping Topuria at least a little bit at distance. And it wasn't like flummoxing Topuria to the point where he wasn't doing anything, but it was keeping him back enough that when Topuria would come in with those charging 1-2 combinations to try to get inside, which I think in MMA is the best way to try to get inside, he was still far enough away that Holloway could, still fill that space a little bit with the jab while circling away and getting away from any kind of danger that he would be in. Topuria did a good job of getting inside a couple of times and landing flush, but for the most part, the elite level boxing for MMA that Max Holloway was able to show in that first round, kept him out of danger for the most part. And I think, I have my notes right here. I'm pretty sure I gave him the first round based off of that. I did. I thought that he won that first round based off of, again, being able to put that volume out there and starting to kind of take over because he had that understanding of the range and the distance and keeping Topuria off of him. The one thing that I have noticed while watching a lot of these fights is sometimes they do follow a bit of a familiar kind of plot line here, where one guy wins an early round because he has figured out the range first. And so he is able to establish that jab, keep him at a distance, and keep him away from it. And I'm not saying that in this case, Holloway just kind of fell into a bit of a false sense of security with that, but there's no real advancement off of that. In Holloway's case, he did advance it a little bit, where he has that jab out there, and he is keeping that distance. And then as Topuria is coming in, the combinations start to get a little bit tighter, and he's starting to follow up that jab with a few more punches, and that's where that volume starts to build. And that was the part of the game for Topuria that I was a little worried about. I wasn't sure how he was going to be able to handle that. And in the first round, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad. He was getting inside. He was landing these shots. Again, I keep feeling like I have to kind of counter everything with, well, it wasn't that bad. Well, it's kind of that bad. Both of these guys fought a tremendous fight. This was art. This fight put the art in mixed martial arts. It was phenomenal stuff to watch. But at the end of that round, you have Holloway, who has the distance down, and he is starting to really tee off on him a little bit. And back to what I was saying before, the common kind of plot line that you see in these is once that guy who was at the wrong end of that distance figures it out and is able to get inside, that guy usually starts to take control of the fight. And that's what we saw in this one. And for a couple of reasons. One was the investment that Topuria made in the leg kicks. He was able to really wear down Max Holloway and slow him down a touch. Not to the extent of Aldo Faber at WEC 48, where Faber's just limping around. It wasn't that level, but it was just enough that it allowed Topuria to start getting inside. And as he starts to get inside, he's landing with that game-changing power that he has, and getting punched in the face that hard also tends to slow you down. And so while Holloway has this otherworldly chin and is starting to put that volume on him a little bit still, it's slowing up a little bit. And now Topuria is getting inside. And now Topuria is getting inside with these 1-2 combinations. And he's really starting to take control of this fight and get that momentum going. I was so impressed with how he was able to kind of counter that. And guys with his knockout power, at his age too, tend to sometimes just go for the one big shot. But he sets it up really well. And then he ends up winning the fight with one big shot. But I guess it was technically two. But still, he is putting those combinations together, and that is allowing him to get inside and to start to control this one a little bit more. And then you get to the third round, where again, that forward pressure, the leg kicks, and now starting to land a little bit. Holloway is just a touch slower than he was at the beginning of this fight. And Topuria is still fresh, and he still has that power, and he is still charging forward and landing with these big shots, and he is able to finally break through, land that big shot. It wobbles Holloway for one of the first times in his career, and then the big left really closes the show, and that is it. Brilliance from every aspect of the sport for Ilia Topuria. He got an early takedown. That kind of got things in Holloway's mind a little bit, and it created a really good kind of grappling exchange there. But what he was able to do, like I said, to start to wear down Max Holloway, to be able to get inside and to land those big shots was a masterclass. And I loved every aspect of it. This was overall a really fun show to watch and to analyze and to break down. And Topuria was at the very top of it with what he was able to do with, again, just some absolute brilliance in game planning, understanding what he was up against, and still being able to walk through some of that fire, because Holloway was putting it on him. This was not a one-sided Terminator walking down ass-kicking by any stretch of the imagination. This was a damn close fight right up until the point where the lights got shut off for Max Holloway. Unbelievable showing. So now you get into the bigger picture of what does this mean. We will start again with Topuria because he is the next one, I think. That this guy has superstar written all over him. Maybe for an English audience there isn't that charisma that some others would like, but he's not boring, for one, and there is a confidence to him that is just it presents a bit of a different, for lack of a better term, because we're going to talk wrestling in a second, for lack of a better term, it presents a different character for the UFC to go out there and promote and put him on there. He is a good-looking dude who has all the confidence in the world, who, by the way, can punch through your face. So that feels like someone you can build around a little bit, right? And so I think that this is a big opportunity now to create one of the bigger stars in the sport, because from a dominance standpoint, he feels like the next one. From a marquee standpoint, I don't know if he is Conor yet. I feel fairly confident that he's not, actually, but he, from a winning MMA fights, it's him and Pereira right now, and there's no one else on their level. And again, if you want to expand and you want to do soccer stadiums and you want to do big European fights, this guy should be at the front line of that, because he has now in 1 year beat Volkanovski and Max Holloway to be your featherweight champion. And I do not think it is way too early to talk about greatest featherweight of all time. You just knocked out the guy who was in third place in that particular battle with Volkanovski and Jose Aldo ahead of him. But another run like this, another few fights, and all of a sudden Topuria is getting into that conversation. That is the level of talent we are talking about with this kid who's only 27 years old. It is unbelievable. And so it creates a very interesting fighter of the year discussion, because Pereira has done some phenomenal things. And talent-wise, he is unbelievable. You guys know where I'm at with Alex Pereira. But the year that this kid has had to beat Volkanovski and Holloway. When Volk lost that fight, I had him number 2 pound for pound. Holloway is one of the greatest of all time, coming off of one of the greatest moments of all time at UFC 300, where he video game knockout style Justin Gaethje. And then Topuria came out and knocked him out for the first time ever. It's just like, that's a tough resume to beat when you're looking at Fighter of the Year. Pereira stepped in on short notice and won some big fights. I don't think the caliber of opponent is anywhere close to what Topuria has been able to put out there. In terms of what it means next for Max Holloway, it's a tough spot now for him, because he has now lost fairly soundly to the champion. And the guy who is maybe even next in line, Alex Volkanovski, if he wants another shot, well, Holloway has lost to him thrice. So that sucks. It puts him in a weird area. He is Max Holloway. He is a legend in this game. He has a very aesthetically pleasing style. Sorry, aesthetically pleasing. He's an easy fighter to watch. I love breaking his fights down, and he has a personality that, yeah, you put him out there with anyone, and it's going to be fun. And you can also throw that knockout of Justin Gaethje up on any highlight thing. Is, oh yeah, no, this guy should fight for a title again. So one more fight, like Holloway gets one more win, and he can probably get right back into a rematch here with Topuria, because you can sell that it was a close fight right up until the knockout punch. But I don't know if this will go any differently, because I don't think Topuria is getting worse. And while I don't think Holloway has fallen off to the extent that some of his other MMA brethren have at advanced parts of their career, certainly when they get to 34 fights in their career, he is slowing down maybe just a touch. And if that is all he is slowing down, then it is too much for him to keep up with Topuria. And so then the obvious thing is, well, he just won a big fight at 155 pounds, go there. I wouldn't want to be facing Islam Makhachev, and I don't think an Islam Makhachev fight goes any differently than a fight against Volkanovski would have, or anything like that. So it doesn't, from a title perspective, it doesn't feel like Holloway has room to go up to any of those. So now, where does that conversation leave him? Because he can still put up some amazing fights, and he is still one of the best fighters in the world. And honestly, if at 145 pounds, he's probably the third best fighter, maybe even the second best fighter in the world, depending on where Volkanovski is at right now, post a couple of losses here, and a couple bad losses. And then, so you can argue Holloway is like 2-3 there. And you look over at 155 pounds, you could argue that he is like the second or third best fighter in that division as well. And so he is obviously one of the best fighters in the world, and one of the best fighters ever. It's just now, where do you put him? And I don't really have an easy answer for that. It's kind of just whatever he wants out of this now. Do title fights still motivate him? That is, I think, obviously, I think they did. He showed up motivated and ready to go in this fight. But one of the things he had said is like, yeah, I've never fought Justin Gaethje, and I kind of want to see what that's like. And so, is that going to be something that motivates him continuously? Because I think that's going to have to be what it is for the next little while, is just some of these new tests that you haven't fought or haven't had to pass yet. And now if you get through them, well, now maybe there's this opportunity, maybe there's that opportunity, maybe there's this, whatever. I would love for him to get another Conor McGregor shot, because that happened very early in his career. And I would love for him to get that opportunity to maybe avenge that or something. But I think we are kind of getting into maybe a bit more of a super fight era for Max Holloway. Now, co-main event, Khamzat Chimaev with a dominant performance over Robert Whittaker. And we said coming into the weekend that this was either going to be kind of the end of the Robert Whittaker hype train, the end of the Khamzat Chimaev hype train, or the beginning of the, like, okay, this guy is back, here we go. Pretty obvious which one it was. Dominant victory over Robert Whittaker. That guy No one's touching him. No one's beating that guy. Not at 185 pounds. If he can get down to 170 pounds, ain't nobody at 170 pounds going to stop that guy. If he wants to continue to eat a whole lot and bulk up and get up to 205 pounds, that frame-wise, that might be a little bit difficult for him, but I would still favor him against most there too. This is just genuinely one of the best fighters in the sport. The speed that he is able to execute these things at, the power that he is able to execute some of these things at, and the precision that he is able to have while maintaining the speed and power is just remarkable with what he is able to do. The speed he got in on that takedown was great. And then there's a couple grappling exchanges. He is able to get the better of them, busts up Robert Whittaker's face, gets a crank on that just pushes Whittaker's teeth back into his head a little bit, and that's the end of the fight. I know we just did like a big long breakdown of the Topuria thing. I don't think there's a big long breakdown to be had here. This is a terrifying fighter when he is motivated and when he is on. And right now, he seems like he is both of those things. And I just, like, a title has to be next for him against Dricus du Plessis. And we can talk about, oh, wow, isn't it funky that Dricus can do all these different things and all of that? It's not going to matter because Khamzat is just going to run through him, I think. Like, this is just a different animal. And the only thing that has been holding this guy back is him. And the fact that he is able to do this in this big of a stage really shows what this guy is really what this guy can do when he is really motivated. And he put on, I thought, a good performance. For Robert Whittaker, it's another tough one. And it is, I think, going to pile on a thought that maybe his best days are behind him, because they are. But where can he go now in this weight class? Because he has now lost to the top 3 fighters in the division with Izzy, Dricus, and now Khamzat. So any hope of a championship opportunity for him, I think, is gone. I would imagine that getting your face fixed is going to require a little bit of time off. And I hope that the run that Whittaker had, kind of pre-Izzy, that kind of bridging that gap there at 185 pounds, doesn't get lost. Because again, genuinely one of the better fighters of his era. He has now just run into a couple of buzzsaws here, and I don't think another title opportunity is in his future. Again, very talented fighter and is a good test for other fighters to see where they are in the championship hierarchy, but that's basically what is left, I think, for Robert Whittaker at this point. Magomed Ankalaev with a really big win, and a very fascinating one, at 205 pounds. And you would have to assume now that he is the next in line for a championship opportunity here at 205 pounds, beating Alexander Rakic by unanimous decision. The first round, Ankalaev looked a little bit set off a little bit. He obviously has power, and the striking is okay. He ended up just kind of chasing a whole lot in that round, and Rakic used a very kick-heavy game plan because the reach, I have it here, the reach was about the same. No, Rakic had a 3-inch reach advantage. But anytime that Rakic would try to punch, that allowed Ankalaev to get in and land a couple of big shots. Rakic was using a kick-heavy strategy, and not just leg kicks, because that, just the way you do it, leaves you a little bit more open and exposed. But he was going to the head, and he was going to the body, and that was forcing Ankalaev to, defend with his left hand, to get that kind of kicked up a little bit and beat up, but also just kind of kept him at a distance. And he wasn't, again, what we talked about in the Holloway-Topuria fight, he wasn't able to really get inside a whole lot, until, again, he was. And what changed in the second round is he started to cut those angles off a little bit more effectively. And that really started to kind of cut off the game plan for Rakic. And that allowed Ankalaev to not only kind of dictate how this fight was going to go, but also to get a little bit more inside and start to land his power shots as well. Instead of just chasing around and whatever, now you have cut them off, and now you're in the advantageous position, and now you can land with a couple of your shots. And so I thought that really allowed him to get into his groove, and it was at that point where it seemed like Rakic couldn't really get Ankalaev off of him. And this is where I think the fight really took a turn. And sometimes MMA coaching can be talked about a little bit too much. I don't think that is the case here. I think there was and to be fair, I don't know Rakic the way his coaches do. And so maybe if they come out there and throw water in his face and are like, yo, dipshit, you just lost that round. What are you doing? Why are we not You had a winning strategy in round 1. Why can't you get this in round 2? What are we doing here? You just lost that round. It's now 1-1. We got to win this round if we're going to win this fight and get back into title contention. And maybe Rakic is the type who just does not handle that style of coaching well. Either it demoralizes him or over-motivates him and puts him in a bad position, whatever it may be. Maybe he doesn't handle that coaching well. But for that corner to come out and say, yo, guy, it's 2-zip, dog. You got this thing. I thought was a real strategic error because Rakic then fought that third round like he was winning. And he got these tie-ups along the wall, and it was just kind of slowing this pace down. And while all that's happening, Ankalaev is landing some of these little shots, and he's able to get these things going. And then when they break, all of a sudden, you have Ankalaev landing with some more power, landing with a few more of these shots. And it's like, for Rakic, it's okay, well, they're not knocking me out. I'm up 2-1. We're going to win this fight. And then they go to the judges' scorecards, and it's 29-28. So I thought a real strategic error from the side of Rakic in this fight that kind of set them back and may have cost them the win, quite frankly. If he comes out with a good game plan in that third round and really executes, I think he could win that fight. But it kind of took it into the world where Ankalaev was a bit more comfortable and was able to get him the win. So now it does set up a fight for Ankalaev with Pereira. A couple of things from this, though. They were saying on the broadcast, and he kind of was like, no, I just didn't think Rakic's stand-up was all that good. So we were able to come up with a game plan, figure it out, and go from there. And for the most part, that is accurate. The first round didn't go Ankalaev's way, although with some of the big shots he was able to land, you can certainly make a compelling case depending on what you want based off of octagon control where he was coming forward the most and landed the most big shots. It was only a couple of big shots, and it was whilst he was eating a whole lot of kicks and a few punches as well. So there's a volume power debate to be had, but I gave Rakic 1-1. You can certainly make the case that Ankalaev had that first round, but still it's not debilitating to the point where it would take you off of the striking first game plan if you're Ankalaev. And as we said, all he had to do was start cutting that cage off, and then he found his advantage. So I don't want to say it was an easy fight for him, but it was an easier fight for him to be able to go out and do that instead of doing the grinding thing on the ground. But, and this is maybe, again, the pro wrestling coming out in me a little bit. If you wanted to really make a case that Ankalaev is a real danger to Alex Pereira, the way you were going to do that was to go out and just wrestling suplex the bejesus out of this guy and just grab him and take down and grind on him in submission attempt after submission and just seem like this boa constrictor just slowly dragging the life out of your opponent. And the fact that he didn't, it won him the fight. But I think all he did in this was demonstrate for about 15 minutes that his striking is not close to the level of Alex Pereira. And so if you wanted to create this dangerous challenge, the likes of which Pereira has never felt before, and start to sell this thing, this was not the way to do it. It was the way to get the win, and you can then sell the rest of that later. And I'm sure in any highlight pack, whatever, when it comes to creating doubt about who can win, you will see Ankalaev slamming guys and the strong grappling. And maybe this gave you a little bit more promo material to work with. These guys will stand and bang, and those sorts of things. But from a strictly tactical, this guy can give Pereira a problem, I saw nothing for 15 minutes that I thought Alex Pereira couldn't handle anyway. So I thought that was just, if that was again, he is looking to win a fight and he won the fight. And I don't want to take away and say, oh, well, he should have done it with more flair, because I hate that. And I know I just kind of became that guy, but if you are just looking at we are creating the next dangerous challenger for Alex Pereira, that was not the way to do it. And then in the thing, stop running away from me, Alex. Look, I understand that this guy is the number one contender, and he is the number one contender for a champion who is looking everywhere but his weight class right now. He is looking at Aspinall, he is looking at John Jones, and I'm sure if Israel Adesanya decided that he wanted to bulk up to 205 pounds, that front of the line, at least in Pereira's mind, that would be the fight to make. So yeah, the top three options for Pereira aren't Ankalaev. I don't think anyone, aside from the Ankalaev camp, is taking that as, oh, Pereira's running from him. It's like, no, man, this guy has just whooped that ass in every other top contender in this division, and he is now looking at bigger and greater things. He's not looking at, like, oh, yeah, Anderson Silva, I want you, or, he's not calling out these legends who are past their prime or anything like that. He's calling out the interim heavyweight champion of the world who hasn't seen the second minute of a fight in, 24 months. And he's calling out John Jones, who, by if you just looked at his resume, is the greatest fighter in the history of the sport. If you just watch his fights, he's the greatest fighter in the history of the sport. So he's not exactly calling out these whatevers. Like Ankalaev, compared to those guys, is a tune-up fight, with all due respect. So the narrative that, oh, this guy's ducking me, he's running me, running from me, that can work in some instances. It ain't this one, man. No one believes that guy is afraid of anybody right now. Won't go as deep into these next couple, but a really fun chess match in the featherweight division with Lerone Murphy against Dan Ige. And again, this was a very fascinating fight to watch, because early on, we know what Lerone Murphy wants to do. He wants to come out, wants to use that smooth striking that he's got and start to style on Dan Ige a little bit. Well, Dan Ige didn't let him do that. He was up in that guy's face for the entirety of the first 5 minutes, really putting that pressure on and just not letting Murphy get comfortable at all. And then he sets up, he gets the takedown, and we get a couple interesting grappling exchanges, but for the most part, it is just Murphy trying to not get bludgeoned to death while he is on the ground. And that's oversimplifying it a little bit. Murphy had a couple threatening moments there, but still, Ige was able to keep that pressure on for 5 minutes. Then, that pressure slowed down mightily. And so I don't know if it was a cardio thing or what it was, but all of a sudden Ige was not putting that pressure on Murphy, and that allowed Murphy to get back into this fight. And so when he's not on that back foot, now he can start coming forward and start landing a few more of those strikes and really start to get those things going. And for Ige, you can see he's starting to slow down because it's a long shot that he tries that he doesn't really set up. And you can then make a counterpoint that maybe Murphy shouldn't have had as much trouble getting away from it as he did, but still, there was that pressure that was coming after him, and that pressure that was really bothering him in round one, that wasn't there in round two. Ige was, I think, trying to put it up there. He just didn't have it in the gas tank for whatever reason, and that allowed Murphy to get back into this fight. And so in the third round, they're going at Ige like, look, man, you gotta pressure this guy, everything you got. And so what they got instead was a tired fighter who was still trying to push forward that just ultimately made him a little bit vulnerable. And then an interesting tactical move by Murphy, because I thought like this was set up, not that it was just like strict zombie, like he's just dragging his knuckles, okay, fine, whatever, like leading chin forward, like he's still covering up, he's still landing his shots, but this is not the forward pressure that you were dealing with before. This shouldn't have been much of a hindrance to deal with if you are the type of striker that we think that you are. And instead he goes for the takedown, which I thought was interesting. And it led to some sloppy grappling exchanges, but also very interesting and I think noteworthy ones, where you have Ige, who is this veteran, who is trying to take advantage of a world that he is a little bit more comfortable with in the grappling department and trying to get every edge that he can in there. And you have Murphy, who I think is trying to show that he's more than just a one-trick pony, going in there and throwing up submission attempts as well. And it led to some very interesting grappling exchanges that probably at the end of it, you come out 50-50, if not maybe a little bit more threatening for Murphy, actually. Throws up the triangle attempt, had a potential at a heel hook that turned into a scramble, that it was like, oh, Ige used this to get on top, and actually then Murphy got back on top again and created that opportunity. So I thought a very interesting fight, and one that is, I think, very necessary for Murphy in his continued progression up at 145 pounds. And for Ige, I think the game plan was very telling, and I think the game plan is also one that other guys are going to try to implement now on Lerone Murphy going forward, because I do think that it exposed a bit of a weakness. And so this is exactly what you want when you have a guy on the rise. And they are both 33 years old, so it's not like you have this young up-and-comer whatever. Ige has just been around it here in the UFC for a little bit more and has a better understanding of these high-level fights than Murphy has. And so this is the test you want to see this guy pass on his way up. How does he handle forward pressure? How does he handle when both guys are bagged? It's the third round and they're in these wild grappling exchanges. How does he handle this? And overall, it's a B to B plus. It wasn't perfection. It wasn't, okay, this guy is ready for prime time, here we go. But this was a necessary step for Murphy to pass on his way, continuing up in the top 15. And for Ige, I think it was a good game plan. I do think he just kind of ran out of gas a little bit, and maybe that there was a 75% area in there that you can go with, but still one of the better fighters you will see. And then Sharabulat Magomedov with the gigantic knockout win to start the night on pay-per-view as he spins one way and then the other way to knock a dude's head off and pick up a victory in that fight. I had seen the highlight before I watched this fight. I didn't realize it was so late in the second round when I saw the highlight the first time. This was a pretty evenly fought contest until that point. Both guys were throwing with very good power. Both guys were countering pretty well, and both guys seemed to have a fairly strong grasp on the kickboxing aspect of mixed martial arts. That's basically what this comes down to, is that they felt fairly evenly matched on the feet a little bit, and then, Chara started pulling ahead a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and then he lands that big ba-boom, and that's that. And so a guy who has been drawing a lot of attention isn't going to get less of it. That was quite the performance and a really great showing for him. And it is still not one where I'm saying rush this guy into the top 15 or anything like that. It was an awkward post-fight, whatever. He's calling out Israel Adesanya. I think Israel Adesanya gives this guy a lot of fits. I think what we saw in this is that he is ready to stand in there and ready to bang and ready to go. He is technically pretty sound, I think, in the striking. But if he has someone who is kind of his equal in that sense, which I would put Izzy above him, then I think that is going to give him a few fits, and we will see. But it's still, he is an action fighter. He has obviously a very unique look, and it has a lot of people's attention. And so I think that's something the UFC is going to continue to build on. For Petrosian, it's a tough loss. Against a big name opponent. I don't think you cut him after this or anything like that. I don't know how many marquee fights we're going to see from this guy in the next little bit before he works his way back up, but there's something there when it comes to the striking element for him. So that is UFC 308 recap. Just a quick pivot now as we continue our fight talk. I will hit the thing and we will talk about UFC Edmonton. So, the UFC makes the always popular trip from Abu Dhabi to Edmonton as they get ready for a fight night card in the Alberta provincial capital this weekend. In the main event, it is Brandon Moreno going up against Amir Albaz with Aaron Blanchfield and Rose Namajunas in the co-main event. And so what are we looking for from this particular fight? What are some of the storylines that we have going into this particular fight card? Sorry, I said Albaz before. It's Albazi. For Moreno, he is the former champion in the flyweight division, and he is now entering a very tricky part of his career because he has now lost to the champion, lost his belt, and then trying to come back from that, lost again in a split decision to Brandon Royval, who, again, fairly good fighter, coming off of now a win over Tetsuro Taira, a couple of weeks prior to that. But also, you have Royval, who has also lost to the champion. And so Moreno just feels like he's falling a couple of steps back. And so if he wants, I think, any hope of getting back into that title contention quickly, this is a must-win fight for him. For Amir Albazi, he has not necessarily reached that pinnacle yet. At 31 years old, out of Iraq, he has been on a tear. He lost to Jose Torres in Brave CF back in April 2019. Since then, he got a win and entered the UFC and won. With his most recent victory coming over Kai Kara France, establishing that this is someone that is a threat in this weight class. And now, a victory over former champion probably puts him in line for a title opportunity coming out of this bout. And so this for Albazi is a chance to get into that championship area, that championship circle, and put him in a spot to potentially fight for a title after this fight. So a huge fight for these guys coming up in Edmonton this weekend. Also at the top of the card, you have Aaron Blanchfield and Rose Namajunas in the co-main event. Blanchfield, 25, was rocketing through this division. Some big wins over Miranda Maverick, JJ Aldrich, fighters people know, Jessica Andrade, and then she runs into Fiorot in the main event of a fight night card in March and loses. And so now, how does she handle this setback? Because I think if she comes out with a convincing win here, then it's almost like that loss never happened, and that trajectory just continues. She goes to get up against Rose Namajunas, a former two-time UFC strawweight champion who is now moving into the flyweight division, who lost to Fiorot, but now wins over Amanda Ribas and Tracy Cortez, has Amanda Nunes back in a spot where, given her who she is, the name identity, the fantastic resume she has put together, probably puts her on the verge of a win here, and you can talk yourself into maybe a title opportunity for her. If not that, then being a fight away from being a fight away. So I think that this is, again, a gigantic fight for these two fighters. And for a fight night card, to have two fights that feel like they are really setting the course for 2025 in terms of potential title challengers, and you have some real fork in the road moments for these two, for fighters in each of these fights, makes this a very fascinating card that we are getting up here in Alberta and up here in Canada this weekend. So it should be a whole lot of fun. Really looking forward to the fight card up in Edmonton, and we're going to cover this one like it's a pay-per-view all week. We're going to look at the non-main event fighters coming up on tomorrow's show. Wednesday, normally that's when we do the other MMA storylines. We just did that a week ago, and also it is pound for pound day, so coming off of a UFC pay-per-view, and there's going to be some changes, so we're going to do that. And then Friday we are going to do at the very least the main card preview, but probably a lot more than that, and that'll come up, that'll be on Thursday. We'll talk about that in a bit, but it's going to be a really, really fun card coming up here in Edmonton. All right, let's close the show, because that's not the only TKO outing this week, as the WWE is also putting on, I was going to say a big show. It's definitely, scale-wise, going to be big. Attention-wise, we'll see. It's WWE Crown Jewel. Let's set it up. So WWE Crown Jewel goes down this weekend. Once again, they head out to Saudi Arabia. And this time, this is to crown the crown jewels of the jeweled crown of pro wrestling. As you have champion versus champion in both Raw and SmackDown in both the men's and women's divisions, as it'll be Gunther taking on Cody Rhodes and Liv Morgan facing Nia Jax for the inaugural men's and women's crown jewel championships. And so the build for this has been a little bit weird. It has kind of felt like Forbidden Door a little bit, or back in the day when they did the Survivor Series brand split stuff, where, like, on the Raw side, it has just been Gunther focusing on Cody. They haven't, Gunther had kind of just finished a Sammy thing, and so he was unburdened by other stories going into this. For Cody, he's got the Bloodline thing going on, he's got the Kevin Owens thing going on, now he's showing up and talking to Gunther about all these. And so I think they've done a pretty good job of building this up and kind of establishing the wants here for both of these guys. Specifically, I think a bit more for Cody, where he is this historian. He's kind of turned into this kind of representation of both wrestling's past and future. And so as a historian, and as someone who understands how many great things his father was able to do, but also maybe some of the firsts that he wasn't able to accomplish and do all those different things, he is putting it on as like that. This is a first that I'm taking very seriously, and I think because of that, it has legitimized things in this a bit. And so I think they've done a pretty good job of building up the men's side of this. The women's side, not as much. Like it's felt like they've done a better job of building up Nia versus Rhea and Rhea versus Liv than they've done Liv versus Nia. Like I feel like this is just going to be a match, quite frankly. So I like looking at what we want to see from Raw tonight. I would like to see at least something that happens that makes me feel like something that feels like this is going to be important to both of these wrestlers instead of just a pit stop before they go on with their real feuds, quite frankly. Seth Rollins against Bronson. The rest of this, like, I don't think we need to see a whole lot of build up for the rest of this, quite frankly. I think they've done a pretty good job of building these things. Like Seth against Bronson Reed, it feels like it's just the start, and it feels like it's going to be that. Randy Orton against Kevin Owens, that has been built up excellently, and probably leads to another challenge opportunity for someone a little bit down the road. LA Knight, Andrade, Carmelo, like that's a SmackDown thing, but what do we want to see this week from that? I don't think there's a whole lot they can do to get me overly interested in that particular storyline. Same with the women's four-way tag team match. I think that'll be interesting. I think it'll be fun. But I don't know if we necessarily are fully invested in that one. And then they've done a great job with the Bloodline thing. Again, getting the Usos and Roman Reigns back together, along with the Bloodline with Solo, Tama, Tonga, and Tonga Loa. So in terms of what they need to set up the rest of the week, I don't know if there is a whole lot there that necessarily you need to worry about for the build. I guess coming into it, I was like, I'm not really feeling it for this one. But then you go through, it's like, well, they've set that up pretty well. Well, they've set that up pretty well. Well, they've set that up pretty well. You know what? Maybe they've set this show up pretty well. It's just the concept that I'm not necessarily super thrilled on. But yeah, we'll be covering this throughout the week. Raw recap coming up tomorrow, and building up to the preview for the pay-per-view coming up on Thursday. That's going to do it for the regular programming. Yes, Deeds. The person who needs a crown is Toxic after the absolute beatdown he gave me this week in the Vampire League. By the way, hey, PK, Toxic, and Moneymaker. Yes, Mini Moneymaker said something in the chat before, and I forgot to bring it up, so I apologize for that. I'm like the only trader in my league. My team was terrible in week 1, and now I have 4 first-rounders in my starting lineup. Yeah, guy just making those pushes, and that's... Like, trading makes the leagues so much fun, and I haven't been able to do that in the Vampire one because of I'm the Vampire. I'm not allowed to make trades until I take someone from your team, which is, again, not going to happen this week. But trading makes it fun, and you've done an awesome job with that. But the Vampire League's been great. Toxic with a big win. Yes, we are doing the gaming stream later. That is going to be at 3 o'clock. I think... we are still going to do the Calgary Flames one today. It's a Flames game day, and I kind of, like I said, I want to rush through some of these, and not rush through them, but I want to advance this one so we can kind of move on to a few different things with that. I do have a bit of a scheduling adjustment around here again, and we have kind of we've joked like, oh yeah, no, that this is how it's going to be until it changes, and this is how it's going to be until it changes. And we have another change. Fridays have become a bit too chaotic for me. Moving the shows to 9. No one has been around for them, and it still hasn't made anything any easier for me in going from this to editing it all and putting it up, and then getting to 960 and doing that, and then for the next little bit, I have something else on Fridays. This last Friday was basketball at Ambrose and all of that. So Fridays, for this. In the way that we are more familiar with them, are probably done. Fights in football Friday will move to Thursday now. We'll still do the same. Still do the same previews, still do the same, UFC previews, UFC, like, recaps, wrestling, all of the Friday stuff. It's just going to be on Thursdays now with that same kind of breakdown. It's going to give us a little bit more time to break that down as well. And then Friday, if there is anything, I think I'm going to play around with, like, a today's ticket thing. That'll probably be over on Kick, honestly. But I kind of want to see all that before I make an official change to everything. So right now, as it sits, it's going to be Monday to Thursday here from now on, with everything from Friday just moved to Thursday. And we'll see about different game streams and stuff like that as this goes on. But it is always fluid, so I appreciate you guys sticking with me. Follow me on social media for all the updates and when I'm going to go live. I appreciate all the follows on here. Subscriptions, they have a deal right now where I believe new subscribers get, Discord Nitro for a bit. So if you want to jump in on that, by all means, go for it. But yeah, follow me on here. Follow me on social media at Primetime Klein. I'll let you know all the places you can find me, which includes, later on today, playing some video games. So I will talk to all you in a bit. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Talk to you later.